Matt Stone, executive editor of Motor Trend magazine, and also here at Pebble Beach, chief class judge. For car people, Pebble Beach is like Woodstock. It is the greatest gathering on earth in any given year. One place, one time, the finest cars, the biggest variety of cars, and some of the most special and exciting cars you will see any place at one time.
You're watching Cars.tv.
I'm Jason Wenig. I am the owner of Creative Workshop Restoration in Dania Beach, Florida, which is a suburb of Fort Lauderdale. As odd as it might seem, now that I'm a car builder, I started off in corporate America with a graduate degree and working in New York City. It just never clicked for me. You know, being in a corporate environment, wearing suits every single day, and moving paper left and right, it just didn't feel right. It took somewhat of a leap of faith with my wife and myself to go to the creative side of who I was and the engineering or the mechanical side of what I am, and blending mechanics with design and doing something that would fit. It just so happens that cars satisfy that. Design and mechanics combined to create moving art form. There's two kinds of projects we work on. There's traditional restoration where someone drags us something that's been forgotten about 30, 40, 70 years ago, and then we actually have to forensically deconstruct it and rebuild it back up together to original specs again. And then there's a project like this, which is conceptual. Somebody gets a whim, and then they call me and they say, what would you do about that? And it's up to me to kind of put their ideas into reality. It's almost like a car stylist. You know, I want this image, I want this presentation, I want this type of a vehicle, and I need to trust you to make it into reality. So I went ahead and put together a proposal. Nothing too elaborate, just a couple of pages of ideas of how I would go about satisfying this desire. What we're trying to do is not trying to replicate something. We're trying to emulate something. We're trying to create a feeling or an emotion in somebody that they would have had if they had the original car. One of the parameters that Barry set forth for me was to create a car that captured all of these things we just spoke about, but was modern in certain elements. With traditional build techniques and some traditional components, I had to actually figure out how to stuff modern technology into this, meaning the steering, the transmission, the drivetrain in essence, the electrical system, the fuel management to a modern spec. The second thing I had to worry about was I didn't want anyone to look at this car and think that it was a replica of anything. I did not want to put in a ubiquitous Ferrari engine, which a lot of people do when they're building a kit car or whatnot, because it's got oomph appeal, and then have someone walk up and say, oh, it's another Ferrari replica, which is the last thing I wanted to do. So what's not a Ferrari engine? What is reliable, modern, adaptable, and what's really sexy? And the first engine that popped in my mind was a BMW V12, which a lot of F1 teams run with, that is infinitely expandable, and that I'll run this thing until I'm dead, and it'll still keep going. I've driven some vintage race cars before, and just the amount of energy that gets transmitted through a car like this. Modern day cars don't have that kind of a feel. You're insulated from the environment around you. You can drive a modern car, you don't even know if the engine's on. You don't even know if you're driving. You're touching the steering wheel, you don't even hear the road, you don't feel the road. When you're in a real car, you become one with the road. It's man, machine, and environment. And the responsiveness of the car, its connection with the road, the feel of the wind in the hair, the sound of the exhaust, the smell of the car, good patinted oil and exhaust. That's what living's about. And if I could capture all those things into one entity, then that's a success.
You're watching Cars.tv.